Here we go. We have Makoto, the self-proclaimed most unlucky isekai protagonist ever. Now, I think there's I have a laundry list full of characters that I think would argue against that. But yeah, this is my impressions on Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy, a series that is airing in the summer 2021 anime season. I've watched 2 episodes of the series so far, and this is my thoughts on it. As I mentioned in the intro, Makoto claims to be the most unlucky isekai character. And while I do agree with him to an extent that he has had a lot of very bad luck in his experience being isekai, I can't say that he matches the likes of, let's say, for instance, Subaru, who basically has to die over and over and over and over again. Just to get through situations. But yeah, essentially as the episode opens up in the first episode, we get a kind of a little play off of, oh yeah, here's all these tropes that you would run into on how to get to an isekai. Yeah, you would get a harem and all this great stuff, superpowers. But he claims that he gets none of this stuff. He actually gets terrible luck in this whole situation. But yes, Makoto essentially is doing his normal life in Japan, and at some point he falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he is before a god, and this god is Tsukuyomi. And Tsukuyomi essentially lays out to him, well, Tsukuyomi's a little bit surprised by the fact that Makoto doesn't understand why he's there. Apparently he was supposed to be explained at some point. But yeah, apparently his parents has at some point was from another world, and they were transported to our world. And in return, they would have to one day give up something of their own back to the previous world. And so apparently there's all these gods and goddesses of different worlds that are essentially just trading people between them, heroes and stuff. And typically one will take somebody from their world, imbue them with hero powers, send them to another god or goddess's world where they would be used to save that world. And like I said, essentially his parents were brought from another world, and now he has to be sent back in return to kind of fulfill this contract. But before he does that, Tsukuyomi essentially imbues him with some powers because he's like, the goddess you're going to is going to be, she's a little hard to deal with. And sure enough, when he gets to this other goddess, the goddess is like, man, you're ugly. I don't want you here. That's all right. I got other heroes that'll handle this. Just go to like some edge of my world, stay away from my people, don't spread your seed around, and just chill. I don't want you here. And just basically gets rid of him. But she does imbue him with the ability to understand other language, which we'll come into later. So yeah, now that he's like at the edgiest area of this area, he's basically been stripped of the hero title. Tsukuyomi does appear again to kind of say, look, I'm sorry, but keep in mind that this world is different than your previous world, where your previous world had these restrictions put upon you that would keep your strength and your power subsided. That's no longer the case here. So kind of an indication that he's really strong and really fast. So he essentially does have a lot of powers in this other world. And he quickly uses this as he sees a orc girl being attacked by a Cerberus, and he basically kicks right through the thing, knocks off its head, and scares the orc girl, but eventually talks the orc girl into letting him kind of stay with their people, where he finds out that Emma was heading over to this altar to be a sacrifice to this Shin dragon. And after she helps him kind of figure out magic and some other things about himself, he decides that he's going to go to this Shin and defeat it to prevent her from having to sacrifice herself. And when he gets there, he uses some magic, ends up knocking out a whole bunch of bad guys, and they're like, we just used the name of Shin, he doesn't exist, but now that we're dead, Shin will appear. And sure enough, Shin appears, he beats Shin, and Shin decides, because it looked into the mind of him and seen all these great things of this world that he was from, that she wanted to make a pact with him so that she could see more. And this pact essentially makes him as her master, and thus working for him going forward. Following this, we do find out that Shin does have this kind of alternate plane that she's able to control, and he decides, I would like to build a nation in here at some point, away from all this other world, away from the goddess's view. And she kind of takes this as, well, okay, we'll just employ all the orcs to come into this world, and they'll build an entire village. We'll make a kingdom in here. So she's already kind of building this kingdom within this world and pulling the orcs into it and everything. And then at some point, some gluttonous spider shows up that just kind of breaks into this barrier and starts attacking. Makoto beats this spider, and the spider does the same thing and makes a contract and becomes this black-haired beauty. And that's pretty much where we leave it. So yeah, my thoughts on the series so far. I'm actually really enjoying this, surprisingly enough. I think it's something that when I seen the key art for it and everything, I really wasn't feeling it. I'm like, ugh, this doesn't, the character designs aren't really doing it for me. I wasn't really sure I was going to like it. Right off the bat, when the first episode opens up, it's pretty much already saying, hey, haha, we're making fun of isekai tropes. And it's like, well, that doesn't really make it funny, just pointing them out. But sure enough, it actually started doing, I think it's got a really solid, constantly moving forward pace. Now, it can feel a little bit fast, but I think that pacing is constantly hitting on things and moving forward to the point where I didn't really ever feel bored. Even though, again, it was kind of trying to tread typical waters and the idea of the isekai power fantasy, but it was doing it in a way that was kind of entertaining, but at the same time hitting the points and moving forward, not really kind of dwelling on things. I guess that's the key thing, not dwelling on the jokes, even if they are jokes that have been done before. And even still then, with the jokes, it was hitting on things that I've never really seen before. There's an interesting chemistry between Makoto and Shin, and the idea that Shin is able to look into his memories. And that was the original reason why she took a liking to him, is she wanted to see these things from this other world. And as it goes along, it kind of has her continuously kind of prod at him and poke out these memories of things of his previous life. And sometimes they're a little inappropriate. They're like, visual novels and stuff that he's looked at that are more the ecchi side. And I do like that kind of play off of that aspect, as well as things like the idea that his parents were technically from this world, and how he now has a driving force in the idea that he would like to walk in the footsteps of his parents. So it's another thing that's not really used often in isekai, is this idea of him technically being a return isekai. We have a lot of isekais where they go to another world, but not necessarily the idea that the generations after that isekai returning back to the previous world, and what that technically can mean, and how that does enhance him, and what footprint his parents left in this world, what kind of legacy that they may be left behind, if anything. I think the only thing weird about Makoto so far is it's not really super clear on his ability. Now, I'm assuming that his super strength and his affinity for magic is probably something in his bloodline of what his parents left him. Because like I said before, what Tsukiyomi points out is that you being here, the restraints you had in the previous world that prevented you from having a lot of strength and magic is no longer there. So these restraints that were on you have been pulled off, so now you can basically go at full power. And Tsukiyomi did give him something, and that was what Makoto keeps pointing out as being this ability to essentially alter this area around him. He says like a semicircle area around him, he's able to alter things in it. So he's able to dodge things, he's able to heal wounds, or at least patch it back together. All these little kind of things that he's able to do, but it doesn't really necessarily explain exactly what it's doing. It's just that he's saying that he can essentially alter things within this area. What's the limits of that altering? What does it technically mean? That's what I'm kind of curious about. It doesn't really put a specification on. I guess it's kind of leaving it very vague so that you can essentially use it to be his overpowered ability. But yeah, and like I said, technically the other kind of interesting thing that may come from this is obviously the appeal for me, and I think it is for several of these types of shows, is this is kind of playing into the field of build your own nation isekai, while at the same time having the power fantasy isekai. Typically, we do have a lot of series lately that seem to be the build the nation isekai. Realist Hero this season is one of them. Slime technically was doing that for quite a while, and Reincarnated as a Slime was doing that for quite a while. Prodigies Have It Easy in Another Life. That one technically was going for that idea of build the nation rather than anything else. But this one kind of feels like it's probably going to be straying more into the Reincarnated as a Slime area, where it does have the build the nation thing because they're building this village and stuff within this demi-plane that this dragon had. But at the same time, I think it's going to play off the idea of him being this power fantasy and him possibly going out and adventuring, again, to follow in the footsteps of his parents. And what that could mean for him maybe conflicting with the goddess. The goddess, again, wanted him to stay away and just go to the edge and stay away from everything. But he's not going to be doing that. Is he going to see possibly her not liking that? Is he possibly going to run into the other heroes that the goddess has employed? Maybe conflicts happening from that. But it'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see where that goes from there. But like I said, very much so surprisingly enjoying this series. Like I said, it's a solid isekai that's doing technically it's playing off of the jokes and it's doing it for a joke of isekais, but at the same time its pacing and keeping itself moving forward is really doing it a good justice. So I definitely suggest if you're looking for an isekai power fantasy Build Nation-esque kind of balance. But that's my thoughts on it so far. If you like this video, leave a like down below. Let me know what you thought of the series in the comments. If you're going to check it out, or if you already checked it out, what you think of it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. It does definitely support us. And I thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.